Hi, I've been playing this indie tabletop game called Spell, where when you do magic, you draw Scrabble tiles and literally spell your spell in order to cast it. Usually I'm playing D&D, and in the lore of D&D, spellcasting is a creative act. Many of the spells used in the game still carry the names of the wizards who invented them, like Tasha's Hideous Laughter or Bigby's Hand. But in reality, most of us aren't out here casting original spells, like Ginny's ever-present sword. Spellcasting usually just means picking from a list. D&D promises the fantasy of creative spellcasting, but doesn't really deliver on it. Spell, on the other hand, manages to pull off what D&D can't. I really enjoyed the game, but I know most of you played D&D, so I was curious, is it possible to steal this mechanic to make D&D spellcasting more creative, or are these two games just too different? Let's find out. Someone could probably write a whole dissertation on the various D&D lore around the origins of magic and the creation of spells. And considering how many of us are neurodivergent, someone probably has. There are so many settings that have been developed and changed and updated so many times over the decades, there is no one correct canon answer about how spells are created. In the Forgotten Realms, you can trace magic back to a set of scrolls written by lizard people, of course, just like the ones that live in the tunnels underneath Denver International Airport. In Eberron, elves learned magic from giants who learned it from dragons, whereas from what I can tell, in Dragonlance, dragons all learned magic from one bard. That's as far as the wiki took me. And if you want me to read all 200 novels before making a video, then you can expect my next upload in 4 to 6 business years. Depending on your setting, you have some of the most powerful wizards in the world creating spells that we still use today. In Greyhawk, Evard is inventing his black tentacles and Leomund his tiny hut. You even have setting-hopping characters like Odaluk and his freezing sphere, and Mordenkainen, who you probably know from his magnificent mansion. For whatever reason, that one ended up being a little more popular than Mordenkainen's defense against non-magical reptiles and amphibians. Wonder why? Every D&D spellcaster uses magic in different ways. Clerics are #blessed with magic by their deities, sorcerers are born with it, although maybe it's Maybelline, who really knows, but wizards in particular are like the scientists of magic. Their craft is learned through rigorous study, and that study includes experimentation and invention. Just like a scientist in our world aims to have some exciting new discovery on their record, a new spell of their own would be a real feather in a wizard's cap. Of course, the lore of your D&D world is entirely up to you and your party. Just because wizards invent spells in Faerun doesn't mean that sorcerers or clerics can't invent them in your setting, and you get to decide what the history and culture around spellcrafting is like in your world. Maybe spell invention is sacred, or dangerous, or aggressively bureaucratic. I'm sorry, your fireball request was denied, due to a zoning discrepancy. Now you're probably asking, Ginny, how could this mechanic possibly be balanced? Couldn't someone just spell kill or bomb and be super overpowered? And first of all, chill, we're getting there. But yes, let's talk about how exactly spellcasting in Spell the RPG works. Spell is pretty rules light. The bulk of your character build is going to be your impulses, which are basically Spell's version of ability scores, just skills you might use to solve problems. There are 12 of them, which sounds like a lot, but most are self-explanatory. Things like calm, daring, or style. All the things that disappear the second I try to talk to strangers. To get past a guard, you might use force to knock them out, or scheme to sneak by, or even hope if you trust they'll see your honest heart and let you through. That one's for the optimists. Or the delusional. You roll a number of d6s equal to your impulse level, and if at least one meets the difficulty, you succeed. So let's say I'm trying to hope my way past a guard with a hope level of 3. The GM calls that a hard task, difficulty 6, and fair enough. Letting people through for good vibes is pretty much the opposite of a guard's job. So I roll my 3d6, and if I get at least 1 6, I succeed. There are also bonuses and penalties and epic challenges that require multiple successes, but that's the basic idea. Impulses are used in spellcasting too. Whenever you cast a spell, you pick the impulse that your character is channeling to make the magic happen. So if you want to cast a spell to attack a monster, you might choose force or grit. To heal an ally, you might use trust or hope. It's pretty open to interpretation, so how closely that impulse has to match the spell really depends on the group. As a GM, I was honestly pretty lenient.
I should like to try and heal as well. I'm going to scold Mother. Mother, I should hope that you would do a better job of defending me. I have a nasty splinter in my palm. So I have 3 hopes.
Whoa!
So I have 13.
Lots of options.
Yeah, there's too many options. It's almost like letters are too good.
Talent? Prove talent?
Mother, I should like you to stitch up my palm now! And he doesn't even flinch as he's like having his palm sewn up. Don't forget the kiss! The corpse is like...
Oh my god. It worked fine for a one-shot, but if I ran a campaign, I would probably have to start saying the word no occasionally. Once you've chosen your impulse, this is where things get weird. Just like for a regular action, you'll roll a d6 for every level you have in that impulse. But instead of trying to meet a difficulty, you'll add those numbers together and draw that number of letter tiles. Then you literally spell your spell. You can make any word or phrase that you think might match your goal. So if you're being chased, you might cast crawl to slow your pursuers, or lose us to slip away, or even something completely off the wall, like wet pants or mad birds, which you would definitely have to explain. Depending on how silly your game is, some of these may be slightly more effective than others. It's really up to your game master. Oh hey, look what I can spell. Today's sponsor. Hey guys, I know I usually do these really elaborate sponsor ads, but I'm not gonna lie, I am super wiped out, so I let Nimwin write the ad this week. Action! You're supposed to clap that in front of... Right, got it. World Anvil is a tool forged not by mortal hands, but by visionaries who sought to bring order to chaos. Game masters, RPG players, and fiction writers may use it to bend reality to their will.
Your tone lacks gravitas, but continue.
With World Anvil's 25 article templates, one can weave wikis of knowledge beyond mortal comprehension. Their chronicles feature fuses maps and timelines, allowing you to plot events across time and space, making the mortal lifespan irrelevant as necromancers do. Are you sure?
Stay on script.
For Game Masters, 45 systems await you, including D&D, Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, and more. For players, character sheets, journals, and inventories form a grimoire of unmatched depth.
Time for the call to action. Say it with passion.
Sign up free
I said passion!
Sign up free at worldanvil.com/Ginny and take 51% off any annual membership with code Ginny.
Now swear your soul to the Forge Eternal.
I don't think you have to do that. It's just like an email sign up.
Coward. Cut!
You might be wondering what players are supposed to do if you can't spell anything good with your letters. If you're really struggling, either because you didn't draw many tiles or because the alphabet is bullying you specifically, you can force a spell. That might mean misspelling a word, reusing a letter, or otherwise bending the laws of grammar. A forced spell can still succeed, but there will be a consequence. Maybe the spell damages the caster, or changes the environment, or generates a harmful effect along with its intended effect. So if you force the spell Fire Sword, maybe the grip is red hot and burns you when you use it. If you force the spell Unlock, maybe it generates a loud noise that alerts anyone nearby of your presence.
Would this be, because the Z wise ass, that would be one that might be tricky?
Yeah, I mean, if you want, you can do it. It just might have unintended consequences for you.
Yeah, that would be my signature. Wise ass.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm defending. You have to hit a 4 or higher with your wise ass.
Nope.
No.
What is the barb that you attempt to sling?
Why don't you leave me alone?
Now, every time you cast Wise Ass, it is a force spell because it's misspelled. As you're speaking, your face sort of stretches and these furry ears go like spring out of your head and you get these big buck teeth. And when you try to speak, instead you make this braying sound. You sort of pause like, oh, that wasn't what I meant to say. And as you pause, your features subside and return to normal, but your use of your spell has gone. If you really can't find a single useful word amongst your tiles, you can just wait and try again. You get to keep a few tiles from this first casting so that next time you try, your odds are a little better. And if you cast a spell you love, you can spend a resource called potential points to make it permanent. Permanent spells can be cast anytime for free, and you can level them up over time. The result is a spell list that is incredibly useful, profoundly unhinged, or if you're lucky, both at once. One of my players ended the session with Tidy, Dance, and Sleep, and the other ended it with Hit in Bum, Wise Ass, and a Pet Fire Goat. Both quite powerful, but only one could headline Coachella. And to be clear, if as a game master you think a pet fire goat is just too weird for the story you've all agreed to tell, you can impose penalties or even throw out the spell entirely. Just because you can spell silly things doesn't mean that this mechanic can only be used for silly games. Just like D&D, the tone of your story is really up to the people at the table. But Ginny, you're probably saying, you were supposed to tell us how this is balanced. What's stopping a player from casting Become God and completely upending the game? And bro, stop shouting at me. Your energy is like really intense right now. The thing is, the word you choose doesn't actually decide how effective the action is. The stats and the dice do that. The word just describes how the action happens. In short, it's mostly flavor. But if that's disappointing to hear, walk with me for a minute. In D&D, if you're facing a locked door, one character might kick it down, another might pick the lock, and a third might talk the guard on the other side into opening it. 3 different approaches, 3 different stories, but just one result. There was a door in the way, and now there is not. Spell works the same way. It just lets you solve problems with a little chaotic word puzzling instead of choosing from a list of skills. Maybe you cast open to get through the door, or maybe you cast acid spit and melt it with your own saliva. The outcome is the same, but the way your party members look at you afterwards is very different. If you cast Become God, you will not literally become God, but if it succeeds, you might be able to temporarily gain the power to perform one divine act, or disguise yourself as a god to influence others. Or maybe your GM will just be like, okay, let's swap seats. What happens next? At the end of the day, if you strip away the flavor, every tabletop game is just a group math problem. Spell is just adding a unique layer to that. It's not only about how you describe your magic, but how you use the random nonsense of letter tiles to problem solve creatively. If you can't tell, I really liked it, but I play Wordle religiously every morning, so I'm kind of the target demographic for Magic Scrabble. Like I mentioned though, Spell is pretty rules light, and I know that most of you are here because of the 200 videos I've made about D&D, so I get that not everyone's gonna want to play it. That's why I wanted to find out if we could take this creative spellcasting mechanic and stitch it onto D&D. I want wizard players to get to feel like wizards, and what better way to do that than letting them literally invent a spell from whole cloth, using their own creative brain to unpick a challenging puzzle. I am not saying we replace D&D's entire spellcasting system with spells mechanics. Please don't panic, rules lawyers. But it would be such a fun occasional twist. Imagine a magic item called Spellcrafter's Tiles that lets you create one new spell and then takes a year and a day to recharge. Or a one-time narrative moment where your character designs a spell alongside a mentor in some ancient candlelit library. You could even create a homebrew subclass like the Spellcrafter Wizard who gets access to this unique ability on a level-to-level basis. There are so many places we could graft this mechanic onto D&D. But before we start playing mad scientist with game mechanics, we need to talk about how spellcrafting works in D&D to begin with. Because believe it or not, there are actually rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide for how to invent your own spells. Unfortunately, well, I'll let you see for yourself. The creating a spell section is more or less the same in the 2014 and 2024 DMGs, other than some of the numbers being tuned up a little. It's less than 1 page, and it's made up of just 2 parts. First, a few common sense suggestions, like don't make it too powerful and don't make it too niche. They're talking to you, Mordenkainen. Most of us just aren't encountering that many threatening non-magical reptiles and amphibians, you know? And second, a table indicating how much damage or healing a spell should do based on its level. And that's it! The table is extremely practical, but the moment you want a spell to do anything but provide straightforward healing or damage, you're basically on your own. There are third-party supplements like the DM's Guild book that I made a video about last year with more detailed spellcrafting systems, but when it comes to official guidance, you're in the same position that a real wizard would be, doing your own research and experimentation, just hoping you don't blow anything up. I recently designed a few of my own spells for some Patreon downloads, and while it was a lot of fun, it was also a lot of work. Each of my ideas felt pretty straightforward until it came time to turn them into functional game language. For example, I made a spell called Minor Reanimation that lets you reanimate an undead hand, like Thing from the Addams Family. Practical, adorable, and a violation of the laws of nature, like all my favorite spells. Then I asked Ryker from the Cleric Corner to do an editing pass, just to make sure that I hadn't built anything totally broken, and he poked so many holes in my game design that they all became cleric spells. Get it? Because they were so holy. There were so many little things that I hadn't even considered. I gave the hand 30 feet of blind sight because, you know, hands don't have eyes, but I also let the caster possess the hand for scouting, which means I accidentally gave a level 1 spell 30 feet of blind sight, something that PCs can't otherwise get until 13th level. Unlike Spell the RPG, there is no regulating game mechanic to decide how powerful D&D spells are. Spell levels are descriptive, not prescriptive. By that I mean, making a spell 1st level doesn't make it weaker, and making it 6th level doesn't make it stronger. Spell levels are given to label the spell based on how strong it is. You could homebrew a spell called Baby's First Fireball that's just a 1st level spell that does the exact same thing as Fireball, and there is nothing in the mechanics of D&D to stop you. Having an encyclopedic knowledge of the existing game design like Ryker does is a hugely helpful resource, but even then, a lot of game design is subjective. We had basically infinite levers to pull to adjust a spell's power level. If it was too strong, we could raise its level, or lower the damage, or add limitations like concentration or a saving throw. You can make it take longer to cast, so it's useless in combat, or shorten its duration, so it's useless outside of combat. Working on a spell called Blood Oath, we found ourselves trying to quantify what it means, mechanically, to break a promise. At that point, we were no longer building a spell, and we're basically just building a philosophy of ethics. In short, D&D has a very different approach to spell creation than Spell the RPG does. So is it possible to mesh these two different games together and keep things balanced, especially when D&D gives us so little guidance on spellcrafting? I've done a little wizardly experimentation of my own, and I think I've come up with 3 ways that you could pull it off. Let's go through them in order of difficulty, starting with the hardest version, Brute Force. This is where you actually learn how spells are balanced. You study the numbers, calculate the effects, compare your creation to other spells. Basically, you learn game design, which is like alchemy, if alchemy involved Excel. Now, if players want to learn all that, then great, but realistically, this means they do the fun part at the table, and then the DM does the math homework later. It does at least guarantee that the DM knows exactly what's going into their game, so if it breaks everything, they have no one to blame but themselves. And maybe Wizards of the Coast, just on principle. So maybe the wizard gets access to a spellcrafting workshop, rolls some d6s based on their spellcasting modifier, pulls a few letter tiles, and invents Bookgate. It's teleportation, but with books. The DM says, cool, session over, goes home, and immediately regrets every decision that led them to this point. They open a bunch of tabs comparing Misty Step, Dimension Door, Teleport, Tree Stride, and probably at least one very contentious Reddit thread to try to make sure Bookgate won't destroy the campaign. They decide if it's a ritual, what components it requires, what the range is, and then next session, the wizard player can add it to their spell list. If you're a DM who gets invited to a party on Friday night and goes, no thanks, I'd rather be homebrewing game mechanics, then this method is perfect. But if you're already overworked, allow me to present the next easiest option, reskinning. Reskinning gives players the illusion of invention, but you're really just using an existing spell with a fresh coat of paint. It's less work and a lot less risky for game balance. In fact, official D&D almost gave us this. In the Unearthed Arcana from April 2023, they playtested a pair of spells for wizards called Modify Spell and Create Spell. It was basically just a structured way to let players tweak spells for permanent use. It would actually make a great resource for this method, since you could piggyback on their own game designer's thoughts about what parts of a spell can be changed without sending things completely off the rails. So if your player invents Bookgate, you just rebrand Transport via Plants. Same level, same rules, just swap plant for book. Now the wizard can teleport between any 2 books that they've read on the same plane. Is it abusable? Sure. But it's a 6th level spell, they're all abusable at that point. Plus, that sounds fun as hell. But if even that is more work than a game master wants to do, I have a third, even easier suggestion, courtesy of my friend Cal, who played in my spell one-shot. Balance. Who cares? There is an argument to be made for just embracing the chaos. Let the player invent the spell. No oversight, just let the chips fall where they may. Just like a real wizard, they may learn that the world balances spells for them. Is there a weird loophole? Then weird stuff happens when you cast the spell. Maybe Mistra shows up and is like, what the hell, man? That is a really messed up spell. You're in trouble now. If it's overpowered, cool, now the villain can cast it. That's how to turn a party of nerds into book burners overnight. Man, I really talked myself into this. I'm gonna write up Bookgate as a spell and put it into my next email newsletter. Obviously, you would need to set up some common sense guidelines around spellcrafting. I would suggest that no caster should be able to create a spell of a level that they cannot cast. They should only be able to create spells for their own spellcasting class, and the higher the level of a spell, the more expensive and time-consuming it should be to create. Personally, I wouldn't let a player whip up a 6th level spell over lunch. That's gonna be months of work at least. I mean, it took me months to make my 2026 calendar, which goes up for pre-order this week, and that's literally just paper. I mean, it's paper that has some very cool images printed on it of me as various dungeon-crawling fashion dolls, featuring the incredible skills of graphic designers and 3D artists and illustrators, but still. You'll be able to order the Dungeon Dolls calendar by itself, or the deluxe edition, which comes with a booklet of 4 doll-inspired subclasses for 5e and a full set of extremely sparkly pink dice. I will also have a digital calendar available, since this world unfortunately does not have access to 6th level conjuration spells like Bookgate, and international shipping is available but can be quite expensive. Pre-orders launch this week, and you can sign up at ginnyd.com/dungeondolls to be notified when they're available. It's so cute. I'm crazy about it.